Welcome all to Hairenik Media's weekly newscast. The 35th World Congress of the Armenian Revolutionary Federation began its proceedings in Yerevan on February 26. As the party's highest decision-making body, the Congress brings together representatives from all ARF regions to review past activities, address organizational matters, and set future strategic guidelines. Key discussion topics include Armenia's security, the protection and realization of the fundamental rights of Artsakh Armenians, internal and external challenges, and critical pan-Armenian issues. At the conclusion of the discussions, the Congress elects the party's highest executive body, the ARF Bureau. Delegates and guests from around 30 countries participated in the official opening ceremony last Wednesday at the Elite Plaza Business Center in Yerevan. Following opening remarks by Kevor Gugasyan, ARF Supreme Council of Armenia Chair Iskhan Sagatelian said in his speech that the defense of the homeland must become our main focal point. We must fight on all fronts and everywhere for the restoration of the rights of the Armenian people. This is a platform that the ARF can present to the people, a struggle in which we must be both the organizer, the soldier, and the leader, because the fate of the homeland and the ARF are intertwined. The rebuilding, reconciliation, and renewal of Armenia, along with the restoration of the Armenia-Artsakh diaspora trinity, have no alternative, Sagatelian added. Archbishop Natan Hovanesyan conveyed the blessing of the Mother Sea, as well as greeting from His Holiness Karekin II, Catholicos of all Armenians, expressing hope and belief that this gathering will have its contribution to our nation. If we concede our history today, we will be deprived from our history tomorrow, he added. Catholicos Aram I of the Great House of Cilicia has sent a message to the ARF World Congress, read by the Prelate of United Arab Emirates Kuwait and neighboring parishes Archbishop Mesrop Sarkisyan. The Church cannot remain indifferent, passive, or an observer when our spiritual, moral, and national values are in decline, when internal divisions threaten our national unity, and when policies of concession in exchange for temporary and deceptive peace jeopardize Armenia's territorial integrity. The situation in Armenia, Artsakh, and the diaspora is deeply concerning. The current geopolitical conditions do not favor us, and we are surrounded by threats. We are on the edge of an abyss. We must adopt appropriate positions, avoiding all forms of unrealistic approaches and superficial judgments. His Holiness emphasized that it is his expectation that Party's World Congress will not be an ordinary assembly, but a turning point that, with new strategic and tactical approaches, will open a new page in the ARF's national mission and service aimed at preserving the territorial integrity of Armenia, the return of Artsakh Armenians, the restoration of their right of sovereignty, and the pursuit of the violated rights of our nation, Aram I's message concluded. In his remarks, Representative of the ARF Bureau Hagop Der Khachadurian said the ARF's 35th World Congress is being convened in Armenia at a time when the entire Armenian nation is in crisis and the homeland is in danger. It is clear that at the current stage of profound geopolitical, military, political, and domestic transformations, Armenia and all Armenians are facing a crisis and serious challenges. The ARF is ready to collaborate with all forces that share our approaches and are willing to fight for a dignified and secure Armenia and Artsakh, the ARF representative added. Speaking with reporters prior to the World Congress official opening, Der Khachadurian said that the Armenians of Artsakh should live together in Armenia, and conditions should be created for them to remain in full rights and not leave Armenia. Artsakh should be granted an interim status, and the people of Artsakh should return to their homeland with international guarantees, adding that ARF is also working on that and respective consultations are taking place in the highest levels with France, Russia, and the United States. He expressed hope that the new U.S. administration will also pressure Azerbaijan to free Armenian prisoners, including the Artsakh leadership. The representative of the ARF Bureau added that during the U.S. presidential election campaign, the ARF appealed to candidate Donald Trump on the issue of Armenian prisoners of war held in Baku, expressing confidence that during the pre-election period, Trump made many more promises than Democratic candidate Kamala Harris. Der Khachadurian added that the ARF has already received positive signals from Washington, noting that some members of the Trump administration, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard, and Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Robert Kennedy, have previously made pro-Armenian statements. They are not only known to Armenians, but some of them have also visited Artsakh. Der Khachadurian cautioned that Armenians should not expect President Trump to elevate Armenia to his top priorities during his 100 days in office. But rest assured that we will continue our work and will apply pressure at all costs, said the ARF leader. Der Khachadurian expressed concern that the Yerevan authorities do not raise the Artsakh issue and that this is an obstacle and complicates the work of the ARF. Fortunately, several countries, the US, France, Russia, agree with the reality that the Artsakh issue has not been resolved. Unfortunately, only Armenia and Azerbaijan agree that the Artsakh issue has been resolved, Der Khachadurian added. Reflecting on a peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan, he said, "There is no question of a peace treaty because we do not believe that Azerbaijan wants peace. What is happening is a fabricated peace agenda and an attempt to mislead the people and justify unilateral concessions." In Baku, the health of Ruben Vardanyan, former state minister of Artsakh, took a serious turn for the worse during a court session. Vardanyan has been on hunger strike since February 18, protesting human rights violations in the Azerbaijani court system. According to limited Azerbaijani media reports, Vardanyan and his lawyer filed a motion for the presiding judge's recusal, which was denied without consideration. During the session, Vardanyan, visibly unwell, requested a break due to his worsening condition. Despite his frail state, the session continued, with prosecutors questioning him over fabricated charges. Vardanyan remained silent in response. Vardanyan's international lawyer Jared Genser condemned these actions, labeling them cruel and inhumane, calling on global organizations to demand access to Vardanyan, ensure proper medical care, and halt court proceedings until Vardanyan ends his hunger strike. Genser also urged Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and world leaders to denounce Vardanyan's politically motivated persecution. Armenian football legend Henrik Mkhitaryan added his voice to calls for urgent international intervention, urging Azerbaijani authorities to allow international doctors to assess Vardanyan, ensure immediate medical care, and delay all court proceedings until Vardanyan's hunger strike concludes. On February 27, the trial against illegally detained Artsakh leaders resumed in Baku. Former Artsakh President's Parliamentary Speaker David Ishkhanyan and Foreign Minister David Babayan all rejected the fabricated charges brought against them. Former President Arkady Gukasyan testified that no mercenaries were present during the 2020 war, asserting that Armenia served as Artsakh's security guarantor. During the trial, former Artsakh President Bako Sahakyan reaffirmed that the Artsakh conflict centers on self-determination, not criminality, emphasizing that the Artsakh movement, rooted in legal frameworks under the Soviet Constitution and the UN Charter, was lawful. Rejecting all charges, Sahakyan declared that neither he nor other Artsakh leaders committed any crimes, as international criticism over the trial continues. In Yerevan, protests erupted outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with demonstrators demanding urgent action for Armenian prisoners held in Azerbaijan. Protesters displayed images of Ruben Vardanyan and other detained Artsakh leaders, highlighting their sham trials and reports of torture. Demonstrators marched across the city from government buildings to the UN office in Armenia, urging the international community to intervene. At Yerevan's Freedom Square, activist Mane Tandilian launched her own hunger strike, urging Ruben Vardanyan to end his. Her demonstration aims to draw global attention to Azerbaijan's unlawful detention and trials of Armenian political prisoners. Tandilian highlighted the immense hardships and moral strength shown by Vardanyan and other detained Armenians, calling them symbols of Armenian dignity and resilience. Meanwhile, Laurent Wakiz, president of the France-Armenia Friendship Group, introduced a resolution demanding Baku to immediately release all detained Armenian leaders. The resolution reaffirms support for the forcibly displaced Armenian population of Artsakh and their right to return with international security guarantees. It condemns Azerbaijan's arbitrary detentions and sham trials and urges the French government to demand their unconditional release. The head of the Armenia parliamentary faction and a former Artsakh defense minister, Seyran Ohanyan, called for national consolidation and pressure on the Armenian government to support Armenian prisoners, including Artsakh's military and political leaders, who are facing sham trials in Azerbaijan. The only leverage available lies with the authorities, who are entitled to negotiate the fate of Artsakh and its military political leadership standing sham trial in Baku, Ohanyan told reporters at an event in Zizernagabert commemorating the victims of the Sumgait massacres on Friday. On another note, Ohanyan announced that the opposition Armenia faction has sent letters to the president of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, Pia Kauma, OSCE PA Human Rights Rapporteur Karina Odebrink, and OSCE PA Vice President Luis Grasa, demanding urgent measures to organize a fact-finding mission to monitor the trials of Armenian POWs and Artsakh's military and political leaders in Baku. In addition, Member of Parliament Levon Kocharyan from the opposition Armenia faction has called on the EU to impose targeted sanctions against Azerbaijan for its violations of international law. Kocharyan made the remarks at the 4th EU-Armenia Parliamentary Partnership Committee meeting in Yerevan. He spoke about the Armenia-Azerbaijan normalization process and the situation around Artsakh. The Sumgait pogrom, which began on February 26, 1988, is remembered as one of the darkest chapters in modern Armenian history. Azerbaijani mobs incited by authorities rampaged through the city, targeting Armenians with horrific violence, rape, and murder. Official Soviet figures claim 26 Armenian deaths, though independent estimates suggest up to 200 Armenians were killed. The massacre became a turning point for the Artsakh movement, shattering any hopes for coexistence between Armenians and Azerbaijanis. In a statement issued on February 28, the ARF Bureau recalled that February 1988 marked the start of a national awakening and liberation struggle of the new era that ultimately led to the restoration of Armenia's independence and the creation of the Republic of Artsakh. From February 27 to 29, 1988, in response to the peaceful demands of the Armenians of Artsakh for their constitutional rights, Azerbaijan, taking advantage of the Soviet authorities' indifference, massacred the Armenian population of the city of Sumgait, followed by massacres and ethnic cleansing of Armenians in Baku, Ganzak, Shamkhor, and other cities. The 1988 Sumgait Armenian massacres, the forced displacement of hundreds of thousands, the subsequent First and 44-day Artsakh Wars, the Armenian exodus from Artsakh, and the annexation of Artsakh to Azerbaijan, the detention and sham trial of Artsakh leadership demonstrate Azerbaijan's long-term strategic ambitions in the region. Azerbaijan's anti-Armenian policy today, openly demonstrated in the staging of the trial in Baku, as well as during the negotiations on the so-called peace treaty, is aimed not at a peace establishment based on international legal norms, but the de facto disintegration of Armenian statehood and the elimination of the Armenian political factor. The statement added that the ARF will continue to pursue recognition, condemnation, and fair compensation for the genocidal acts carried out by Azerbaijan in 1988 to 1990. In this regard, it is noted that a crucial aspect of the Armenian-Azerbaijani negotiations should focus on ensuring fair compensation and the return of the victims of the genocide committed in Sumgait and other cities, as well as the immediate release of all prisoners of war and hostages held in Baku. Sadiq Minasyan, Gümri's acting mayor and candidate from the ruling Civil Contract Party, sparked outrage by defending Pashinyan's handling of the Artsakh war. Minasyan claimed the loss of Artsakh resulted from Armenians' lack of collective resistance, stating, "Pashinyan didn't surrender Artsakh, we didn't fight." Opposition candidate Ruben Mkhitaryan fired back, urging Minasyan to visit the Yerabalur military cemetery to see the proof of Armenian sacrifice. This follows National Assembly Speaker Alen Simonyan's earlier controversial remarks, implying Artsakh Armenians chose to flee instead of fight. The Christian Democratic Movement in Slovakia called on their government to adopt a resolution supporting the release of Armenian detainees in Azerbaijan. Their appeal aligns with the 2023 European Parliament resolution demanding Azerbaijan release all Armenian hostages. Slovakia's call reflects growing European support for resolving the Artsakh humanitarian crisis through diplomatic and humanitarian channels. It is worth mentioning that the Central Office of the Armenian National Committee International has launched an informational website at www.freearmenianhostages.net and www.freearmenianhostages.am to raise public awareness about the illegal detention of Armenian citizens in Azerbaijan, including the former political leadership of the Republic of Artsakh and the fabricated judicial proceedings against them. Azerbaijani authorities continue their policy of ethnic cleansing and cultural heritage destruction in occupied Artsakh, systematically demolishing Armenian villages. This was reported by Hovik Avanesov, the ombudsman for the cultural heritage of the Armenian highlands, who noted that this alarming process has reached unprecedented levels, turning into systematic eradication of entire settlements. Avanesov pointed to a photo shared on social media, which showed the near-total destruction of the village of Taghut in the Hadrut region. This confirms that Azerbaijan is not only targeting cultural heritage, but is deliberately wiping out Armenian historical settlements to eliminate the Armenian presence in Artsakh, he shared in a statement. Avanesov called on the international community to take immediate action against Azerbaijan's crimes and put an end to its blatant violations of international law. Meanwhile, occupied Artsakh capital Stepanakert has become the new center for money laundering for the Aliyev family. Investigative journalists at the Berlin-based Maidan TV revealed that investment projects in Stepanakert are accompanied by corruption, where the Azerbaijani government is implementing large business projects which are under the control of the presidential administration. Under the guise of hotel construction, massive amounts of public funds have been spent. Many of these properties owned by Armenians are being renovated with limited transparency regarding their actual use or the presence of tourists. Azerbaijan's foreign ministry has announced the closure of local offices for Russia Today, Sputnik Azerbaijan, and BBC, citing regulatory concerns. While the outlets may still apply for accreditation, only a single correspondent per organization will be allowed. This move comes amid growing tensions between Azerbaijan and international media outlets, which critics view it as an attempt to control press coverage in the country. The Armenian Church recently marked the feast of Saint Vartan the Captain and his 1,036 companions. Their heroic sacrifice in the 451 Battle of Avarayr defended Armenia's Christian faith against Persian forces. This sacred observance also coincides with the naming day of His Holiness Karekin II, Catholicos of all Armenians, honored with a pontifical prayer at the Holy Altar of Descent. General Andranik Ozanyan, also known as Zoravar Andranik, a legendary figure in the Armenian National Liberation Movement, is remembered for leading Armenian forces against Ottoman oppression and defending Armenian communities. After serving in the First Balkan War and World War I, he died in exile, with his remains eventually re-entered at Yerabalur Military Cemetery in 2000. His legacy endures through monuments, street names, and songs honoring his unwavering devotion to the Armenian cause. In sports, fans reignited protests demanding the resignation of the Armenian Football Federation's leadership before the Premier League match between Gandzazarghapan and Ararat, voicing frustration over the state of Armenian football. FC Barcelona president Joan Laporta's visit to Baku to promote football ties with Azerbaijan drew backlash after he gifted a signed jersey to dictator Ilham Aliyev. The visit, coinciding with the trial of Armenian prisoners and Ruben Vardanyan's hunger strike, raised questions about Barcelona's ethical alignment with a regime known for political oppression and human rights abuses. The ARF Bureau Office of Youth Affairs announced the second edition of the research competition program Armenian Students for Artsakh, aimed at uniting Armenian students' potential in politics, economics, sociology, law, culture, and investigative journalism, and making it available for effective use by influential institutions and bodies engaged in pro-Armenian advocacy on the right of return of Artsakh Armenians. This initiative is promoted by the committee established by the Artsakh National Assembly to oversee the protection of Artsakh's people, led by Vardan Oskanyan, Armenia's former Minister of Foreign Affairs. Students aged 20 to 35 from Armenia, Artsakh, and the diaspora are called to participate in this program. Participants will be mentored by well-known experts in their respective fields. Applications and accompanying purpose statements must be submitted online by April 20. For more information, visit studentsforartsakh.am. The ARS Eastern Regional Board of the United States, in collaboration with Haik Ashkar, published the illustrated children's book Artsakh is Ours, written by Nairi Mkrtchyan and edited by Tamar Herkelian. The book is presented as a dialogue between children and Artsakh. Children ask Artsakh questions that concern them and receive comprehensive answers. This stylish, illustrated, and richly informative book should capture the interest and attention of children who love to read, helping them to preserve their identity. And now let's go to Michigan, where the Detroit Youth Day was held on February 22nd. Our guest is Garod Hamakordzian, member of the AYF YOARF Central Haitat Committee and AYF Detroit Chapter Executive, for his insights on this program. Garod, welcome.
Arev, I'm so happy you guys can have me today. Very excited.
We're happy to have you. Garod, what can you tell us about this program? What is its purpose and who are the organizers?
Well, to start with the organizers, it was originally organized by the ANCA of Michigan, the AYF of Detroit, and kind of make it a joint event so we can get a lot of youth participation going on. As for the purpose, we wanted to educate and expose youth to a variety of new topics, as well as connect the community and sort of create an annual event where we can continuously educate the youth about current goings on and what we think is important.
Can you give me more details about who can be part of the program? What are the requirements for participation?
Sure. We named the program Detroit Youth Day in hopes that more college-age students would attend. However, we got a wide age range. We had as many as young as, I believe, 14, 15, and as old as 25. So we had a good amount of good spread of ages, and we also had a good amount of people. We had around 20 people total. That number petered off a bit at the end because it was a long day from 11 to 7. But I believe the attendance and the age range were both very good. And I'm very happy to announce that they were very attentive the whole time, and I believe they learned a lot.
And what do the participants gain from the workshop?
Well, first, they get to learn about their own organization. Most participants were in the ARF, and most of them were youth executives, actually. We had 3 of the junior executives in our workshop. We wanted to kind of be not only for leaders of the community, but also for general members. That's why we went over such topics as AYF proceedings and how to run a general meeting. And we didn't want it to be strictly AYF based. We've had some ANCA topics, such as what is the ANCA, what the ANCA can provide, and how it makes activism and such easy. We also had more historical based topics and speakers, such as Anik. She talked a lot about how important the genocide is and how we have to continuously remember and continue to learn about it. We can't just ignore it now that we got representation, now that we got it recognized. We have to have continuous education about it. We cannot stop now that we have achieved our goal. And then, of course, Giveskajan was wonderful. He came and really instilled a lot of passion into the youth. He explained his own journey in activism and how he ended up where he is today. It was very inspiring, and he showed us videos of one of the largest protests, especially one of the largest Armenian protests. I believe 200,000 individuals showed up to protest concessions at the time.
Garod, what else can you share with our viewers?
Well, we definitely hope for this to be an annual event. We want this to be concurrent every year. We don't want this to just, be one and done. We don't want it to peter out. We want it to create something where it will go on, We want to create something that will last. And we also hope for increased participation in the future. Another thing I will mention is I gave a lecture. My lecture was about the various ANC programs, how the ANCA can help with activism with your local communities and on a national level, and how it just makes activism easy. It does all the hard work for you. So you just bring yourself and your passion and you're ready to go, And not only protests like day to day, social media. For example, just like talking to like a barista. I've done that on my college campus, where a barista started a conversation with me while I'm ordering coffee in the morning, and I just talk his ear out about the Armenian genocide, for example. Oh, yeah, I must be annoying, but stuff like that.
It's okay, we all are.
And we also got an activity. We had each of our members write on a little sticky note just a small action they could do, something small, educating a non-Armenian, talking about it more actively within their family, joining the ANCA call list and emailing their representatives. And we had them stick it on a piece of plastic at the end. And it was this big piece of plastic with all these sticky notes on it. And that was kind of to show how, small actions do snowball and make a big difference. Together, it really adds up and means something.
Absolutely. Thank you, Garod, for your enthusiasm and activism.
Thank you.
That was our Hairenik Media Newscast. Please stay tuned and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X for more.